how to be better in bed. Most men are terrible in bed. Many women have never had an orgasm from sex. So this is something that clearly needs to be addressed. It's also one of the most common questions I get asked. And the funny thing about sex is it is very multifaceted. So a lot of times when guys are asking the question of how to be better in bed, what they're really focusing on is the technical elements. What they really want is like, if I touch the girl this one way, it'll be like pushing a button and she'll immediately orgasm. And that's not really how women work. All kinds of attraction with women, it's not like an on or off switch, it's more like a dimmer switch where you're sort of like gradually increasing and increasing it. You can't just jump the gun. And so with that said, one of the first things I want to talk about in terms of sex is foreplay. Absolutely critical. If the girl is dripping wet before you even, go inside of her, or if she's already begging you to have sex with her before you do it, that's going to make things tremendously easier. If if she's like dry as you enter her, that's not so good. You don't want those kind of situations. You don't want to be working against yourself. For a girl, the very start of sex and the way that she feels, the way it's framed in her mind is going to have a lot to do with whether or not she can have an orgasm. If a girl's insecure or her she's not present in the moment, any of those kind of things, that can make a big difference, all right? So you really want to focus on those mental aspects. And fortunately for us as men, we don't have to kind of guess and check so much on that. There's a very easy way to tell if a girl's very turned on, and that is she very wet? If the girl is not very wet, I would suggest more foreplay until she is there and is fully ready and I guess primed for the sex. Also, if she's begging, moaning, those kind of things, those are good indicators. Again, you want to make sure that it is good. And understand that if your goal is to give a girl very good sex, a lot of what you do up front will make a big difference on the back end. So a girl who's had proper foreplay can come from sex in a matter of minutes. But a girl who hasn't had proper foreplay and you start with the sex, it could take, a very, very long time, if at all. So understand that first part matters a lot. Second thing that's often neglected in sex is communication. Understand that sex is not just a physical act for women, it is a form of communication. So understand what you are communicating. Understand that not all sex is the same. Sometimes you may have sex where you're throwing the girl up against a wall and it's very animalistic. Sometimes you have sex where it's very tender, very passionate, very intimate. You can even be like, whispering things in her ear during sex, softly kissing her. That's another type of sex. Sometimes you can even have sex where you're even like laughing and enjoying each other and like taking interludes and even having like, I don't want to say conversation during sex, but really interacting on that level. And that can be fine from time to time. That's not really the most common form of sex I have. But the point is that every single time you have sex, it is going to be a little different. And you need to be in tune with that particular vibe. Also, the sex you'll have on a one-night stand or the first time you're sleeping with a girl will be very different than the sex you're going to have with a girlfriend. So understand all that and try not to treat it as cookie cutter. Try and treat it as different every single time. So now I've said treat every sexual encounter as different. Well, how the hell are you supposed to know what to do from time to time? Well, the girl will give you indicators. All right, what you want to do, you want to listen to the girl's reactions and feel the girl's reactions. So listen to the way the girl moans when she's getting turned on. If you're doing one thing and she's moaning a little, you do something else, she starts moaning way more, well, that's a pretty good indicator that particular thing is working. So what I like to do in sex is I will start trying a few different things. And over the course of, I've been with hundreds of women now, I kind of have a few different templates of different things that work. So I'll start trying maybe one of those sort of template sets of behaviors. And if that seems to really be working, I'll know that that's that girl's blueprint, or at least that girl's blueprint for sex today. And then I can kind of go down that path. So I want to test for each of these different blueprints. For example, if I were to maybe reach back around a girl's ear and maybe pull her hair, and I hear her moan and get very aroused, then that would be an indication to me that in that particular sexual event, in that particular interaction, she wants to be maybe dominated a little bit. So if pulling her hair worked, I might pull a little harder. I might, during the sex, I might like smack her ass a little bit. I might push her up against a wall. I might pin her hands behind her head. Those sort of things that kind of all associate with that type of emotional sex. If for example, if I were to kiss a girl's eyelids and she got like really tender and really loving and started like caressing me at that moment, then I might know that this girl wants a very intimate sexual experience. And I would respond to that by kissing her more, taking things a little slower throughout the sexual process, really, really amping up on the foreplay, and actually probably doing tons and tons of teasing, which, by the way, I'm a fan of teasing in general. It's one of my favorite things to do. But in that case, I would do it even more so. So again, you're looking for what is she communicating, what is her sort of sexual blueprint in general, and what is her sexual blueprint at that particular moment, okay? Beyond that, beyond just that first time of having sex and kind of feeling your way through, how she's moaning, how she's moving, those kind of things. That's another one, is she moving into what you're doing or moving away from it? If you're moving your hand up her thigh and she's like moving over like towards your hand as though she wants sex, then she's very aroused by that. If you move your hand up her thigh and she's kind of moving away, that indicates she's not really ready for that. Maybe that behavior isn't working so well. So that's another indicator, right? Again, what's she doing verbally? What's she doing with her noises and gestures? What's she doing with the movement of her body? These tell you a lot about what she likes and what she doesn't like. Beyond that, and beyond a single sexual experience, if you're gonna have sex over and over again with the same girl, it's a really good idea to actually sort of find out what she likes. And you can ask this in just like a very casual way, like I'd say after sex. You'd be like, did you like the way I did this? Did you like the way I did that? The key thing there is you want to be very relaxed about it, very chill about it, and not outcome oriented about it. You don't want to have an ego about it. Like if you say, did you like a certain thing? And she's like, oh no, that's not really my thing. You'd be like, what the fuck? You don't like the way I have sex with you? Or if she does say like she really liked a particular thing, you'd be like, yeah, I'm the man. It's not about your ego. Sex should never be an egoic thing. It should be an experiential thing. It should be between you and the girl having this shared experience. And the reason you're asking the questions is not like so that you can prove to yourself you're better in bed or so that you can get a result the next time. It should just have an even better shared experience where you're growing with each other. So that kind of conversation needs to be very laid back. And along those lines, before sex, during sex, and after sex, all of them, the more that you can convey to the girl that you're not judgmental, that sex is normal and natural for you, that you're open to talking about it, open to experiencing it, that's going to help her give you better information. Like I just mentioned, it's also going to really help her to let go and relax during sex. If she's worried that she's being judged, she's going to have a really hard time having an orgasm or having a good time in general. If she's worried that, her body maybe doesn't look right or that you don't like her the right way, that's going to hurt her as well. The more you can make her feel comfortable, relaxed, not judged, that's going to make a massive difference. So those are a lot of things that I like to think about in terms of the emotional lead-up communication part of sex. Now let's get into some of the technical stuff. First technical thing I already mentioned, which is tons and tons and tons of foreplay. I want the girl begging, I want the girl dripping wet before sex even occurs. That makes things massively better. Second thing, from a physiological standpoint, do not neglect the clit. That is probably the single best thing you have going for you is the clit. In fact, most girls, when they touch themselves, they don't even like focus so much inside. They focus on the clit. And most girls, when they use vibrators, use it on the clit. So take a cue from what they already do. Focus there. Key things about touching the clit is you want to start out very, very gentle. It's very sensitive. If you've ever had a girl like give you a blowjob and she goes like a little too hard with her teeth or her tongue, like at the very start, especially right on the tip, you know how like that can be like overstimulating, a little uncomfortable, like it's kind of too much. Same thing with the girl and that particular very sensitive part of her body. So start out very, very light, and you can always ramp up. Trust me, a little bit goes a long way, and she will, even if you do it not enough at first, she'll be aroused enough from it. You don't have to worry about that. And then the wetter she gets, the more she gets turned on. If her actual clit starts getting bigger, i.e. there's more blood flow there, that's an indication to you that you can start to push a little bit harder. You still don't want to be like, you don't want to be treating it like a punching bag and just like going to town on it or anything like that. But you can start to go a little bit harder. Other tip in terms of that particular touch is, I would say, instead of trying to push it harder, just keep it soft, but like faster. You'll get more stimulus because there's just more touch going on, but without that feeling of it's being too hard or it's a little too much. So that's a good indicator. Another really good move in foreplay, by the way, is to just trace around that area, because the more times you're right there and she knows you could do it but haven't, she's going to get very, very aroused. She might even start begging for you to have sex with her. So that's good as LMR and foreplay maneuvers, but it's also really, really good during sex itself, because it sets that frame that you're in control, you're dominant, you're strong, she wants you, all those great mental kind of things going on there. Beyond the clit, another area that's really, really good is if you were to, I'll try and illustrate this. If you were to like reach inside with your fingers, there's kind of like at the top of her vagina, there is like it's kind of a hard, bony feeling kind of area. If you get right in behind that, kind of where my fingers are right here, there's a kind of a sensitive area back there, and that tends to be really, really good as well. So like pushing, like just like rubbing in here, can be a very, very good place to go. It's actually really good with your fingers. It's also, if you can get the right angle, it's very, very good with your penis as well. So if you can stimulate that area, it's very, very helpful. So a couple of things you can do, say for example, if you're doing like a missionary position, what you can do is lift the girl's hips up, and that gives you kind of an angle where you're going up into that area a lot more. It gives you a much better angle for stimulating the girl. Also, if you get the girl on top of you, and you get, I guess, how do you explain this? If you get like down a little further, like down further down the bed so that you're coming upwards more, that can help. The other thing I like to do in that case to get the better angle is I'll put my hand against her hip so that her hip is forced to not go too far forward. So it allows me to have sort of the right type of penetration, right angle to hit that spot. So that's very useful as well. That's another very, very useful spot overall. Understand that most of the sensitive spots in the girl's anatomy, like inside her vagina, is they're around the outsides. So having sex where you're just going like in and out, in and out, in and out, and not touching many walls isn't really doing you a lot of good. You may see that in porn and stuff like that. It's not doing much for the girl. What you really want to be doing is stimulating key areas and stimulating the walls where you're actually touching something. So focus on that. Like just hitting the front of it hard and not touching the walls is doing nothing for you. So that's a key thing. And that's true for fingers as well. You need fingers on any of the walls. Always better than just like this in and out stuff. That tends to be highly ineffective in general. Other technical thing, rhythm. So personally what I like to do is I like to find the type of touch a girl likes and go with that. And most of the time, it's more about where you're touching them than about the rhythm and the nature of the touch. But the rhythm and nature does matter. In particular, once you find a type of touch that the girl likes, like if you're touching her in a certain area and she seems to really like it, one good thing you can try is to do that either a little bit faster or a little bit harder and see how it changes. If by going faster and harder she's getting more and more aroused, then I would keep doing that to the point that you get diminishing returns. So that's the idea, is kind of you found her blueprint, you found the right button for that particular girl, and you want to just go with it to the point that you can't go further. One last thing in terms of, well, two last things, I guess, in terms of rhythm and pace. It's a good idea a lot of times to vary it up. If you just go hard the whole time, that can get a little boring and monotonous, and it's kind of vanilla and all the same. If you go soft, like slow the whole time, you might not stimulate the girl quite enough for a lot of particular girls. So my particular preference is to go slow and soft, and then more like hard and fast, and then back to slow and soft, and kind of cycle back between the two. Reason for this is that in the going slow and soft, you're kind of probing, finding out what she likes, giving her a moment to relax, a moment to connect with you emotionally. And then the hard and fast is more stimulating for her physically. So that's useful. The other thing is that for a girl, her emotions and like especially the rise towards an orgasm kind of goes in a wave. So she's like increasing. And then at a certain point, if she doesn't get there, doing more of the same won't get her there. So at that point, what you want to do is actually back off, start all over again, and then you want to start that wave all over again, because that particular wave towards orgasm probably isn't going to actually get her there. So if you just keep doing it, it's diminishing returns. It just becomes boring, and it makes you look kind of incompetent. So that's another thing is you kind of find what she likes, increase the rhythm, increase the tempo as long as it's getting better for her. If at a certain point it plateaus or it stops getting better, I would cycle back, chill out, relax, and start the whole process over again. Because it means she may have been like stimulated in the right way, but she might not be emotionally ready for it, or she might not have, she's just not deep enough into like her sexual, I don't want to say sexual cycle, it's just a word I made up, but she's not deep enough into the sex for that to really work out. So that's another thing in terms of rhythm and pace that I think is highly useful and highly valuable. One other area, by the way, not to neglect, and you guys will like this because most guys like boobs a lot, right? You like the tits. Focus on the nipples. Women's nipples are crazy sensitive. It's especially for certain girls. There are certain girls, actually, for whatever reason, I found this a lot with Asian girls and certain Latin girls, but just girls in general, that have very sensitive nipples. There are certain girls that I've been able to make come just by like licking or like caressing the nipple. So do not neglect that during foreplay or even during sex. It's also a nice little cheat code if a girl won't let you, like you haven't had sex with her yet, you're trying to get through LMR, and a girl won't let you touch her like, down there yet. A lot of times they will let you touch them here. If you can give them an orgasm from their nipples, they're damn well gonna have sex with you afterwards. So that's another really, really good sort of cheat code that's very, very useful. Again, remember though, with any of this stuff, I've told you a lot of technical stuff. I've told you, this particular anatomical part or that particular anatomical part, but understand that all of it comes down to communication, right? If the communication's gone, if it's this like robotic, meticulous, like checklist type of process, no girl is getting off from that. All right, the connection, the eye contact, the tone of voice, that's another one that will get to a lot of girls. Saying their name during sex, talking to them dirty during sex, that can be very, very useful as well. And in terms of talking dirty, by the way, you want to, again, like with everything, start a little small, try a little bit dirty. If she responds, try more dirty. If she responds, you can really go to town at that point. Point though is, every girl's emotional blueprint is different. Every girl's physical blueprint is different. What you want to do is have that emotional connection, start communicating, do things that have a good chance of working, but really listen to the women, women's good too, multiple women, I like sex that way as well, but really listen to what's going on, find out what they like, and adjust and accommodate from there. And remember, it's all about the communication, and you want to be open and non-judgmental. If you do that, you're going to have really good sex, and maybe more importantly, you're going to learn to communicate with girls in such a way that the sex will get better and better and better every single time.